How's it going, everybody? This is Jonathan Foster, and I want to welcome you to episode number 3 of the Chroma Hustle Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be chatting with Bethany Beldner. Bethany is a full-time eBay reseller who quit her corporate job last year and has been supporting herself ever since then entirely on her eBay sales. In this episode, we're going to talk a lot about the importance of passion in your business, dealing with negativity from your peers or even your own negativity, doubting yourself and things like that, and also dealing with the fear of quitting your 9-to-5. It's a really good episode, especially for anyone who wants to start something on the side while they have a 9-to-5 job. Getting into eBay reselling is something that is very doable from what Bethany has said. In the episode, you'll see that yourself. The community is very welcoming, so I think this is going to be a really valuable episode for anybody who just really wants to start something but isn't sure how to and wants to start something part-time at first that can grow into full-time later if need be. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this episode. Without further ado, let's get started. So first off, can you just kind of introduce yourself, give us a general idea what you do, kind of how you got there, just a kind of a snapshot of what you're doing right now.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Bethany. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, and I first got into thrifting when I was in college. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. I was like 21 at the time. And my roommate and I went to a really small college, and a lot of weekends we were just bored out of our minds. So we decided to start going thrifting. I mean, it was something that like some of our friends did. So it was something that was kind of normal to just go thrifting. And so we went and we found this $4 North Face jacket. And I mean, this was like 6 years ago. So North Faces were a lot more popular, I feel, than they are now, and just harder to come by. And so we picked it up and we were talking like, oh, I wonder if we could make money off this, because it was just a really nice North Face. And obviously I was a broke college kid like every other person in the world, and decided to list it on eBay. We had some friends who sold on eBay, so we were kind of, we had heard the terminology before but didn't really know how eBay worked. So decided to list this North Face on there and put it up on like 7-day auction starting at 99 cents, and it ended up selling for $98.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, holy cow, like that was the easiest way to make, $94 or whatever. And sure. From that moment on, I was just hooked. Like I saw anytime I went shopping, you just see dollar signs and you're like, can I buy that and flip it on eBay? Can I make money off all this stuff? And right. So again, I was in college, so just did it very part-time. I maybe made like a few $100s every month, and it basically just went to pay for groceries or just have extra fun money and stuff. It was nothing I took very seriously at all. Fast forward a few years, I graduate college, I moved back home to St. Louis, and I take a job at a financial firm working for an advisor there. And I took it thinking, oh yeah, like this will probably be my forever company that I stay with type of thing. And I started just thrifting more. I started selling more. I was, I worked at this financial firm for 4.5 years. And looking back over those years, it's like every year that passes, you get more and more burnt out on corporate America. Like you're sitting at a desk all day long, you're living someone else's dream, right. You hate your life. And yeah, and so many people will say that today too, but like I wanted out and I didn't know what to do because this was, I thought, my forever type of job. And I started again thrifting more. I started selling on eBay more. I started ramping up, that business and seeing how much I could make part-time. And about a year ago, I relocated to Denver, Colorado. Okay. And as soon as I moved and went shopping out here, I found like all these incredible, very high-end brands. And so I started instantly making more money part-time out here than I had back in St. Louis. And, over the last 6 months or whatever, so I quit like 3 months ago, but before that, I kept thinking about like, oh my gosh, could I actually quit my job and do this full time? Would I make enough money? Obviously, Denver is a very expensive city to live in, so I had a lot of risk thinking about that and trying to decide if I could move forward. But I just reached a point at my job that I literally could not do it anymore. I woke up every day and hated it, literally hated it. And I never thought that day would come because I used to love my job, but I just stopped being passionate about it. And I couldn't give it 100% anymore. And I felt like that wasn't fair to the company I worked for. That wasn't fair to my boss. That wasn't fair to me, like all these things. And so I decided, it's time to quit. I either get another job in corporate America or I quit and I try to sell on eBay full time. And I forgot to mention too, like I was getting more involved in Instagram, and I have all these like resellers on there that I had previously been talking to. A lot of those guys are full-time resellers, so I was able to just reach out to them and ask them questions like, hey, what are the pros and cons of doing this full-time? Is it worth it? Would you do it again? All these things. And the feedback that I got from everyone was, it's amazing. Go for it if you are dedicated enough to do it. And so, yeah, November 15th was my last day at my old company. So I've been doing this for 3-4 months, and it's been incredible. I am bringing in more income than I was at my old job. And I am seriously like so happy. I love waking up every day. It's just, I don't know. It's a job that I look forward to doing, and I never dread it. And I love it.
That's awesome. That's the dream.
It really is. Like all my friends joke around that I don't work, and I joke around that I like don't work either. But in reality, I work way harder than I did in corporate America. But just
the difference is you like
when you're passionate. Exactly. And when you're passionate about something, you will work your butt off to do it and to succeed at it. And that's the spot I'm in right now.
Right. That's awesome. Going from corporate America, like it sounds like in financial services, I imagine if you'd been there that long, it's a pretty stable job. You were, I'd imagine, good at it because you used to enjoy it and everything. How did you kind of get over the fear of jumping in or even begin to take steps toward quitting and things like that? Because that's kind of a scary thought.
It's so scary. And if you would have asked me that a year ago, like I would have told you I would never quit my job to eBay full time. Like that's a bizarre idea. But I think that you truly reach a point where you are maxed out at, for me, corporate America. Like I had no desire to be there. And it's like you start thinking about what other options do I have, if any. And for me, I just didn't want to be living someone else's dream. It's like how long I've been there 4.5 years. In a blink of an eye, there goes my whole life. I could have been there 40 years and not really been successful at anything that is important to me. Like you just get so burnt out of listening to people boss you around. And, I had a good salary, but my salary was like capped at that, where eBay, it's a risk, but you can make more money. Obviously sometimes less if you suck at your job or whatever. But, yeah, so I really just think being burnt out did it. And I was willing and dedicated, and I would do whatever it takes to like not have to be in that position again. And thankfully, I was selling on eBay for like 6 years, obviously very part-time before that, but it was something where I had to pursue it because if I didn't, I would have always questioned, could I have done this? Could I have been successful on this? And, it's just something like it's proving it to myself that I could do this. And I think that I'm passionate enough about it that's the biggest thing. People ask me how I do it, how I sell so much, or how I bring so much income in. I'm very passionate, and I will work as hard as it takes to make sure that I'm not homeless or to make sure that I can afford to live life and feed myself and all these things. It comes down to how motivated, you are, which for me, I'm very motivated when it comes to thrifting and reselling. So I think that's the big thing.
Do you feel like that? This may be a very odd question. Do you feel like that passion and motivation is something that can be built up over time? If someone has, when they're starting out, they have a certain level of passion and motivation. Do you feel like that's something, I don't know if I'm phrasing this well. Do you think they have to be as fired up as you were at the beginning? Or do you feel like they can just take gradual steps and kind of learn to love it more as they get better?
I think that if someone is legit quitting their job to pursue this or something else, they have to hit the ground running. Because if they aren't, if they have like an ounce of laziness or an ounce of, I'm questioning if I can do this, that's going to come to bite you. And I think that it's really scary jumping into it if you have any hesitation that you can't succeed at it. For me, I don't give myself the option to fail at this because I know that this is my only source of income. And, I think that more passion and more like dedication can come over time, but you still have to have that before you quit your job to pursue, this or something else full time. Because otherwise I don't think that you will succeed if you don't.
Right.
In my personal opinion.
Right. Well, like obviously you can't just be like, day one, I want to sell on eBay and quit your job the next day.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of planning has to go into it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
I wish it would have, but you're right.
Right. And sometimes it might seem like it did, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage to maintain that mindset of being enthusiastic about what you do, being passionate, and being willing to work hard? Because obviously there's the fun part of being self-employed, which is waking up when you want, like doing whatever you want, anytime you want, really, and having the satisfaction of knowing that you're making your own money. But then there's kind of the ugly side of running a business. How do you manage to maintain a positive mindset when you're dealing with the ugly things?
Yeah, so I mean, there's days where I don't have very good sale days. There's days I have, I make less than $100, which, I'm happy to tell you, like my goal every day is to be making $400 to $500 a day.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes it's $100 and it sucks. And it just hits you and you question like, oh my gosh, did I make a stupid decision quitting my job? And you get all negative. But for me personally, and I don't know, I know you're on Instagram a little bit, but I have this huge thrifting reseller community that really keeps me motivated. And there's, I have so many like friends on there. I say friends because I've never met them, but we talk a lot for social media.
Right.
I have a few girls on there who, if I'm having a down day, I go to and they just like lift my spirits. They remind me like, Bethany, you're living a dream right now. Like every person has bad days, whether you're in corporate America or you're self-employed, you're going to have those days where they're brutal, but those are the days that you have to work even harder. So those days I'm listing more, I'm shopping more. I'm just trying to keep myself in gear to keep pressing forward and just reminding yourself that you're not the only one who goes through this. Every business, every company, they go through low points, they go through high points. And I think I've had enough of like the high points, like the high sale days. I have sale days sometimes that are over $1,000. And those are the days that, okay, I can do this. This keeps me motivated for when I have crappy days. Right. So yeah, I think that's it for sure.
Gotcha. How do you, I guess, so I get the impression just the thrifting community or eBay reseller community is a very welcoming place. So is it generally accepted to reach out to people and ask advice or just try to make friends? Like what's the community like on that front?
It is incredible, and I don't think I would survive right now without it. They are very encouraging, and they're not fake people. Like they're very honest and they're very open. And, on there we talk openly about our struggles, like within eBay and thrifting, and we talk about our numbers. We talk about good days, bad days. And it's just so encouraging to know that if I see someone post about having, a bad sales day or they didn't find anything thrifting, like I chime in and say, hey, like yesterday, that was me. I had, I didn't find anything thrifting or whatever. And they do the same to me. So it really just keeps everyone going. And I think it's a very positive community. I always get these like positive vibes from it and stuff. And so I love it. I think there's nothing negative on there. And, every now and again, you'll have people follow you on Instagram who feel the need to comment inappropriate things or whatever, but you just block them. Like you don't, they don't need to be on your Instagram account or whatever. And,
right.
Like, oh, you go thrifting, you're stealing from the poor or whatever. Like things like that are just, they don't need to be said. And they just bring down the positivity in the community. So yeah, I mean, there's times you have to block people, but overall it's incredible. And I love that I can get on and just get so much feedback and advice from all these other people who are in my same shoes. I love it. I really do.
Gotcha. It sounds like, I know just from personal experience, a lot of other communities and sort of, I guess, industries are not nearly as welcoming. I've got, obviously there's you, you're a very nice person. I've talked to you some, on Instagram and everything, and we're talking now. There's a couple other thrifters out there that I think I actually found through looking at who you were following. And I've just noticed that all of their accounts are very genuine. They're very positive. And it just seems like they're all real people. You see a lot of other entrepreneurs who are very fake, who want to look cool and everything. But these guys are just like, I found a Kermit the Frog doll, Like, you can't be sad when you're looking at a Kermit the Frog doll.
Yeah, everyone's nice too. And that's, now that you say that, I do see that with like thrifting and reselling and eBay. I do feel like they're very genuine, where if you look at the hashtag entrepreneur, which might have been what you did when you found me, but I've looked at that hashtag before, and I do get, just the feeling that some people have not the best intentions when it comes to
you feel kind of icky.
What they're doing. Yeah, just bragging about things, or just they're better than others. And right. I think for all of us resellers, like especially those who are making higher incomes, like we want to reach out to the new resellers and help build them up and help like, hey, you can do this. I don't know if you should quit your job, but like, you can at least sell part-time or whatever. I don't, depending on their circumstance or whatever. But, yeah, so that's what I do love it. And now that you say that, I see that too. It's a very just energizing and good community.
Yeah, I love it. I've just, the few people that I've talked to in kind of the community have been super, super cool. Like there's even a dude in Australia that I've reached out to a couple times, and everyone's super cool. I've talked to a lot of people here recently, whether for interviews or just to say hi, and consistently everyone in the reseller community has been just a real pleasure to talk to.
Yeah. Good. Glad to hear.
Yeah. So you guys look good. So going back to kind of how you built things up part-time, how did you manage, was your corporate job, was that full-time?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So how did you manage building up a part-time job while you also had a full-time job without beating your head in with a rock?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think because especially at the end, I was just daydreaming about selling on eBay. So it's like as soon as the day ended, I would want to go home and list on eBay. And so it wasn't really a burden or a hassle for me because it used to be my favorite hobby. So, it still is my favorite hobby, but it's a job now. So I just refer to it differently. But I never dreaded doing it. It was just what I always was daydreaming about doing. So, what was more draining was the fact that I had to work 40 hours a week. It was never that I had to go home and eBay because I wanted to do that. And especially towards the end there, before I quit, I was trying to like ramp up all my eBay listings. I was trying to shop a lot. And it was a really hard transition period because, I felt like I abandoned a lot of like friends and just doing things that I want, other things I wanted to be doing because I had to, list more on eBay and be doing everything that it takes to make sure I could do it full time. But it was just kind of a risk that had to be taken, I guess. And I just had to sacrifice things, and that's okay. Like I knew in the end it would be worth it no matter how brutal. Cause there was a period of time, like the last 3 months of work when I was like training my replacement the last couple months. So it was just very draining. And then I also had eBay. So yeah, it was definitely hard. It wasn't easy, but again, I was so like motivated to sell on eBay full time that I knew that this was the only way to get there was to work and then list on eBay just to get everything like up and running full speed before I quit.
Right. So kind of, it sounds like essentially the only way to make it through that situation without, wanting to injure yourself, is that you have to be passionate about it and truly enjoy it and love it. Like you were saying earlier. Cause you're right. You see a lot of people who, I've experienced it myself working on other things where you get so far into it and it just becomes a task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. This is going to seem like I don't mean it to be as cliche of a question as it sounds, but like, what are the main mistakes you see people making when they are either getting into eBay specifically or when they're getting into just starting to juggle a side business that they hope to take full time? What are some of the challenges you were faced with that maybe you can make it a little easier for other people?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is truly like sitting down and thinking through everything that will need to be done before you either go full time or as you build up a side business or whatever. So, for example, I quit my job and just little things like I needed to buy poly mailers to ship everything in. I wasn't prepared, like I didn't have enough. And I needed to buy like this big lighting kit so I could take good pictures that I didn't have. So it wasn't very planned out on that side of things. So I would just recommend to anyone starting out, like, do your research. There's other people out there who have done what you've done. Like, reach out to them, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, social media, somewhere. I'm sure you can find someone who, has been in your shoes or whatever to just like sit down and help you out. Say, hey, here's a list of everything that you need to buy or think about before you make this next step. So just being prepared for it, which I feel like I kind of slacked in that area, would definitely have helped. And, making sure that you have the finances to fund whatever you're going to do. I spent, a couple $1,000 extra dollars after I quit buying all this stuff, ramping up my business. That isn't a normal monthly expense. But you just need to make sure you have a savings account or something to back up on if you run out of money or whatever. So yeah, just really like thinking through everything and making good decisions to make sure, you just thought through everything. And I guess that's the biggest thing.
Just basically do your research. Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes sense for sure. When it comes to the actual, like, if someone's specifically getting into eBay reselling, how important do you see it for them to like be selling something that they're particularly familiar with? I don't know, when you go and start sourcing products, are you looking for specific things that you know a lot about already, or are you just going places and looking for things and looking for things of high value even if you don't know a whole lot about them?
So a little bit of both. So I sell probably 90% women's clothing. I know that market very well, but I will also go through the men's section, and I don't know men's clothing as well as I do women's. But if I see something that maybe looks like, nice material or a nice shirt or whatever, I'll look up that brand on eBay just to see what it's selling for, to see comps on it, would it be a good investment or not? And I always want to be learning in this position. So I feel like expanding outside of just women's clothing is beneficial. And especially as I grow my business, and, there's times I have like 500 things listed, which is a ton. And, you just have to expand in a thrift store. You can't just go through women's clothing if you want to always have hundreds of things listed, because you kind of run out in the women's section or whatever of things to buy. So yeah, I've been branching out, and I would recommend that to other people too. It's good to probably start with what you know, but don't be afraid to expand and to learn more, and to, because you have to think there's money out there, so much money that, that can be made if you are willing to put in the time to learn about other things and to do the research on stuff. So yeah, and then I also will branch out and I'll look at like hard goods too at thrift stores. I don't buy them as much just because they're harder to ship, but just to, I hate going to a thrift store and thinking, oh, I wonder if there's some $100 item that I could be making profit-wise that's sitting at a thrift store. Like, I just have to walk through to make sure I don't miss anything. So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is to not be afraid to buy something. And, there's going to be times that you list something and maybe it doesn't sell, or it sells for a lot lower than you thought. It's kind of a trial and error job. Like, you're going to learn by making mistakes. You're going to learn by failing sometimes. But I think that's how you get better, and that's how you improve, and that's how you don't make those mistakes usually a second time. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So branch out, don't be afraid to fail.
Exactly, you got it.
That makes sense. When this is out of curiosity, just for you personally, I know obviously you're doing eBay full time. Are you getting into Amazon FBA or anything like that, or are you just focusing full time on eBay at the moment?
Just eBay at the moment. I promised myself I'd give this year to just doing eBay. Next year, I'll kind of reevaluate. I know a lot of people on my Instagram community, they sell on Amazon and eBay. So I would love to eventually get into that market. I'm just trying to be the best I can on eBay first, and then expanding to other platforms.
That makes sense. eBay is kind of a very defined ecosystem, but you've still managed to kind of build your own personal brand and brand for your business on Instagram and things like that. How have you been able to balance the two of being, within the certain boundaries of eBay for your listings and everything, while still making it fun and exciting for your Instagram followers, things like that?
Yeah, so I don't even know how to answer that. So like when I post on Instagram, I kind of try to make my account be an account that people want to follow, like have good and fun posts. Like, for example, I posted a picture of me laying in like 150 packages that I just like packaged to ship out. And people love posts like that. So just like making that be a fun environment for my followers. And, I also post on there like, hey, I had a really good day today, like sales day I made this month, or hey, today sucks, I made this month or this much. And I feel like people like it because I'm very real and honest, and they can kind of like relate to me and want to follow me for that reason. When I list on eBay, it's funny because a lot of resellers will try to brand themselves on eBay. So whether if they buy a backdrop that is different than all other eBay sellers, or whether they, do whatever, take a certain type of picture for all their listings so that other people can follow. I don't necessarily do that. I've bought a backdrop off Amazon, but there's like 50,000 other people on eBay who also use that backdrop. So, I don't know. It's not really branding myself, but I still feel like if people saw the way my like pictures are taken with my mannequin and that backdrop, they might recognize me. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard because my Instagram account and eBay account are just so like different, and not everyone on Instagram will go to my eBay page, and I don't necessarily want people on eBay knowing I have that Instagram account, because I don't want them to know that all the clothes are thrifted, because some people like might have a thing, like be weirded out about that. So okay. I don't know.
Okay, I guess I was assuming that they were more interconnected than they actually are. So that was my bad, I guess.
So like on Instagram, I'll give them my eBay name to come shop, but not really vice versa. Gotcha. So yeah, that's a tricky question, but I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay. So what does, and this is kind of jumping topics, but like what does your typical day look like? If someone's wanting to jump into this not full-time immediately, but wants to start organizing their schedule and things so that they know how to get into it full-time eventually, how do you organize your work?
Yeah, so for me now, I mean, I will thrift like all morning and then I'll list on eBay at night. It's hard for me to give advice to like people who have kids or are married or whatever, because I don't have kids, and I know that takes a lot of time for like hearing other resellers. But I would just, recommend, and if they have a full-time job or part-time job already, just, dedicate 3 hours a week or whatever they can give to just thrifting and listing, to just start to get into the hang of what it's like to sell on eBay, and just the process of what it's like to ship a package and to get paid and all these things. I always say to take it very slowly. I get people emailing me or on Instagram or whatever asking like, hey, should I quit my job and do this full time? Like, I can't answer that for you.
Right.
I don't know how dedicated you are. I don't know what your life is like. Like, if you're trying to raise 6 kids and take care of a husband, like, probably not. You're not going to have time to make it a full-time job or whatever. So it really is just a case by case situation, like evaluating your life and if you have time for it or whatever. But I mean, as long as you're dedicated and motivated to do it, then I would have full confidence in anyone that, yeah, they can make it work if they're willing to put in the time and effort to make it work.
Sure. Now, what kind of like routines, I don't want to say rituals or like, you know what I mean? Like routines and tasks or I guess rituals, have you found to be particularly useful, not necessarily just eBay specifically, but helping you stay sane as a business owner?
Like, what do you mean? Can you rephrase it?
Things like, like a lot of people, like the last guy I interviewed, one of his big things was meditation, mindfulness meditation and things like that. For some people I've talked to, it's taking time every day to read or something like that, create some kind of content, something that isn't necessarily specifically business oriented, but things that help you stay sane.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I take weekends off. And those are my times to just re-energize myself, to hang out with friends, and to get caught up on everything that I don't have time for during the week. And I usually just don't allow myself to go thrifting or to sell on eBay because I need the time away and I need the time off. And it's hard because I list and sell on eBay at my house or at my apartment. So I'm always here and I always see it. But I truly force myself to take the weekends off to just make sure I don't get burnt out on it. And so I think that truly saves me. And, if it's one of those things where, hey, I'm not making any money this week, like I have to work this weekend, then that's fine. But for the most part, like I take weekends off and I don't know, it's just so refreshing. And it's nice to come back to it Monday morning and to be missing it during the weekend.
Gotcha.
So to just, taking breaks from it and just I live in Colorado, so like hiking and skiing are all things that I love to do. And those are what I use my weekends for, and it really is refreshing. I love it.
Gotcha. That definitely makes sense. Taking some time away. It's again, that's another difference that I've seen in kind of from an outsider's perspective of the reseller community is you guys actually have lives.
I know. Can you believe that? I think it's hard because on Instagram, like all we portray is that we only thrift in eBay 24/7 all the time. And it's like, well, that's what that account is for, to just post that kind of stuff. But I never post like personal stuff on there. Like I have my personal account for that. So it's just, I think a lot of people think that, but truly we do have lives outside of it too.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And it's, I know I've seen some of, I think I've looked at your personal account the one time, and that's one thing that again kind of impressed me was just that, again, so many entrepreneurs and everything forget that you have to have time for you as well.
Absolutely.
So when you decided to kind of go full time, or even when you started pursuing it more aggressively part time, the reselling, did your family or friends, did you meet resistance there? Were they kind of worried about you?
Well, I think my parents were worried about me. They just wanted to make sure I was making a sound decision. But they were also super supportive of me because they know that I've been doing this part-time for the last 6 years. And I think it just, for me, like I tell people what I do and they're not surprised. Like it sounds like something I would do. And so they were hesitant at first because they just wanted to make sure like, okay, you can support yourself and just make sure like you'll be able to pay your rent and eat something besides ramen noodles and all this stuff. So,
right.
But I'm kind of glad that they were worried, like cautious up front, just to talk me through, okay, Bethany, have you thought about when this happens, or how are you going to handle this situation or whatever? Because it made me think through, okay, like what am I going to do if I have a month where I truly don't make any money? Or what am I going to do if I can't find things thrifting? Like all these things that made me think through, okay, I need to have backup plans. And so, I don't know, but today they, they're encouraging and they like brag to other people about what I do. So I know they love it and they support me 100%. And that's one of the biggest things too, is to just have family and friends that are there for you and encourage you and support you. I love it. It's been awesome.
Right. How do you deal? I don't know if you've dealt with it a lot. How do you deal with people who are maybe apathetic or almost don't take it seriously what you do in a way? How do you deal with, I guess, people who haters? That's the word I'm looking for. People who don't appreciate the work that you're putting in. How do you not let that affect you?
I think that I'm truly a really positive person, that when people say negative things to me, it almost makes me work harder. And I don't appreciate their comments. And there's times I have to block people on Instagram because they're just mean about stuff. But to me, I feel like they are probably actually jealous that the fact that I can make, this amount of money or whatever, my salary, and not have to be in corporate America. Like, very few people can do what I do. And I don't mean, I'm not saying that to brag or to sound prideful. Like, I work so hard at this job, and there's nothing that anyone can say to put me down about it or to question like what I did. It's just, I'm so confident and passionate about it that anything anyone says that is negative, I can just, out one ear, in one ear, out the other. Like, it's whatever now.
Gotcha. When you first decided to go full time, was it scary for you to tell people, hey, particularly at your job, hey, I'm quitting and I'm gonna go start my own business, or build up my business? How did you deal with, we've talked about dealing with other people's reactions. How did you deal with your own feelings about telling people and things like that?
When I told some of my coworkers that I was gonna thrift and sell on eBay full time, they legit thought I was joking.
Really?
And I think it's one of those things people sell on eBay. Like, a lot of people sell on eBay here and there. And I think it's one of those things, a lot of people in the back of their mind think, oh, she'll probably make like a couple $100s a month or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I think most people don't think that you can make a full-time salary on it. So a lot of people were judgmental up front. And I mean, I have to admit, before I actually stepped into it full time and people were questioning if I could do it or if I was joking about what I was about to do, I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, like, have I thought this through? Can I do this? Because it was before I actually did it. So I really didn't know. I mean, I was jumping into it and it was 100% risk. And so that was a really hard time. And just dealing with a lot of transition too, between leaving my job of 4.5 years and, I had moved to a new city and all these things. Like, I was really just like, what am I doing? But then once I, made it a couple months into eBay, and I'm like, oh, like, I'm doing fine and I can make this and it works. And now I'm just like, anyone can say anything in negative and I want to punch them in the face because I'm successful at what I do, I feel like.
Right. They haven't earned the right to mess with you yet.
It was hard at first, but it's truly fine now. I'm over it now.
Gotcha. When you would deal with those situations where you maybe aren't sure of what to do, if you're not sure how to handle a situation, how have you been able to learn quick enough how to handle a situation, whether that's, a slow couple of weeks or something like that selling, or any other challenge like that? How have you been able to learn fast enough that it doesn't cause major problems in your business? How have you been able to adapt?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, there's times where if, you have a bad sales day or someone says something negative, like, it does affect you. But I think that you just always have to be looking forward, and you can't be like caught up on that because it'll eat you alive and you won't be able to focus on listing or, working or anything. And it really comes down to, it's a personal choice. Like, you have to choose how to look at these situations because there will always be haters. There will always be people putting you down. There will always be crappy days on eBay where you make no money. Like, it's just part of the game. And, these situations are going to be in every area of every person's life, whether it's raising kids or sitting in corporate America, like anything and everything. I mean, it just comes down to you have a choice to how to view, all of those situations. And for me, I choose to remain positive and to just kind of block out those bad days or those negative comments and just keep looking forward. And, for me, like I said earlier, I'm living my dream. And if I fail at this, like I have to go back to corporate America. And that is what drives me. And that is what, okay, I need to set goals. I need to be looking forward. I need to be doing all these things to make sure I'm not focusing on what's behind me type of thing.
Gotcha. That was a really good answer.
Well, fast.
Who or what would you say is kind of this is going to sound like a cheesy question. Who would you say or what is kind of your biggest inspiration as far as the business side of things goes, and just being your own boss and kind of making your own way? I know you mentioned kind of the fear of going back to corporate America, but what gets you fired up?
Yeah, so there's a lot of resellers on my Instagram account who have been doing this longer than I have, who make, double, triple what I make. And so I look at them and I'm like, I want to be in their shoes one day. And I'm always looking up to them. I'm asking them questions a lot. I'm, seeing how they do things and just learning from them. And they kind of inspire me to be the best version of myself that I can be when it comes to thrifting and reselling. And yeah, so I just look at them and there's very few people I think that are very motivated at this job. And when I find people who are so passionate too, who are, very high up there, then I just I want to learn from them and I want to kind of follow in their footsteps. So I would say without this Instagram community, truly, I don't know how I would do it, because I am just constantly involved with talking to people, with learning from people. So so many people are on there just really motivate me and push me to just keep going, I guess.
Right. Again, I love how everything goes back to the community.
It's so important. I think a lot of people don't realize that, but it's once you have a community, it's so hard to look back and remember times without them, because, before I had this community, I didn't really get involved in Instagram or stuff until a year ago. So it's kind of fairly new. When I was part-time, I didn't have them. So I just hope that the way that these top guys are pouring into me, that I can now pour into the newbie resellers, because I was in their shoes not too long ago and sure. I survived, so they can too.
I gotta ask, is there a secret handshake you guys do? Do you all agree on a secret handshake? It's the eBay reseller thing for after you go full time, you learn it. What would you say has been the number one tool or resource that you've gone back to, aside from the community, that's helped you to learn and grow both in business and in eBay specifically? Maybe two things, one for business, one for eBay.
What's that?
I was going to say, so maybe two resources, one for just business in general, a second just for eBay specifically. Yeah, so I've read a lot of books, whether it's entrepreneur books or just about money and finances and stuff, and I feel I've learned a lot from them, and just how to run your own business or how to be successful at it, and just learning basic business tools, and even down to how to handle money. You have all this money coming in through PayPal, how do you pay yourself? How do you pay back the business? How do you, make sure you pay your credit card? All these things. And that has really helped me. And then I'm constantly reading articles on Google and stuff about running your own business. And I don't even know if they're credited or beneficial, but I read them. And what was the other part of the question? Resources for eBay specifically. Yeah, I mean, obviously the Instagram community. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I also Google articles about, so before I quit, I was Googling a ton and reading people's blogs and stuff and trying to figure out okay, how much can I make on eBay? And so I was reading all these articles about how much these random people made when they first quit and all this stuff. So I mean, really all these online tools between YouTube and Google and Instagram that have helped me learn what I'm doing. And then also using this sounds dumb, but using the eBay app, because you can search for, sold comps. You can see how much
if you find an item at a thrift store, you can see how much that same item sold for on eBay. So just constantly teaching yourself and learning. And, I think a lot of people don't know how to teach themselves or don't know how to learn. And it's like they get stuck in this position where I can't move forward because I don't know what to do. Obviously, yes, like we're all here to help you, but Google is your friend. Like YouTube is your friend. There's thousands of videos and articles. Like go read. Don't be afraid to teach yourself things. Like that's how we all learn. Right. So yeah, I think those are the biggest things.
Who would you say are like your favorite either? I know you said you mentioned books, blogs, and YouTube videos. Who are like your favorite authors and, YouTubers, things like that?
Yeah. So have you heard of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
I've heard of it. It is literally in my Amazon cart right now, but I have never bought it. It's been in my Amazon cart for like a month now, and I've just never gotten around to buying it.
You need to read it. It's one of my favorites. I read it at like a really young age, and I have read it several times like in my adult life, and it just teaches you like the value of money. And I don't know, that is like probably one of my favorite books. I would recommend it to anyone. And it's just like a pretty easy read that explains things so like you understand them. And then YouTube, I don't know if you follow on Instagram, State's Place, Nicole State. She does a lot of YouTube videos, and she puts out these like daily vlogs of her thrifting and what's sold on eBay and all this stuff. So I just feel like I learn a lot from her. She's one of the ones I look up to, and she made a ton her first year reselling. And so, yeah, I'd love to follow in her footsteps for sure.
Gotcha. It seems like you're well on your way, because you said back in November you started, right? November 15th? Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're pretty good ways in.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you, when it comes to the content and teaching yourself, because I used to be a web designer, and so I used to talk to a lot of people who were wanting to learn web design. Mm-hmm. They would try to learn and everything, but they would get overwhelmed by all the information and not be able to filter out what's good advice, what's bad advice. Yeah. How have you been able to filter out all the crap?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think for me, I started selling 6 years ago, and 6 years ago, I would not have even known that there was all this information out here. Like truly the only thing I did was list and ship on eBay. Like I didn't know that you could buy a mannequin to put your clothes on, or a backdrop, or you can order poly mailers to ship things in. I used to go jump in dumpsters and use cereal boxes to ship things in. So it's just like I had no idea back then. And now looking back, like I've had 6 years under my belt, I feel like I know when people come to me and try to tell me like bad things versus good things, or this is the way you should be doing things or shouldn't, or like who I can trust in this business and who I can't. And I don't know, I just feel like you can see or have a good feel about who has like good intentions and who actually wants to help your business versus who just wants to bash your business, maybe steal your ideas or whatever. So I think it's just kind of being aware of people around you and like getting a good sense for their intentions and stuff, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, for sure. What would you say are some of the main misconceptions about what you do, or how people get started that are common for people to come across before they know the difference?
Like what?
What, like you said, because of the amount of time you've been doing this, you've kind of learned to just instinctively know what's good advice, what's bad advice. What's some common bad advice that people are likely to come across that you can kind of warn them about?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how to answer. Okay, so like someone wrote me on Instagram the other day, and they were like, hey, anytime I buy anything from a thrift store, I, write it on an Excel spreadsheet, like every item individually. And I went to her and I'm like, hey, that's kind of a waste of time. Like you should just have your receipt and put in daily totals. Like, hey, I spent $50 at a thrift store, instead of writing, woman's shirt in every single item you got. And she was like, oh, well, another reseller told me to do that. And I was just like, that's a waste of time. Like, if that's how you want to do it, it's fine. But there's no real reason to. So maybe that's an example, but it's hard to know because I feel like I don't even know what other people are telling these reseller like newbies, because mostly they just come to me asking for advice, but I don't know like what they've previously been told.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry.
I may not have articulated it very well. Um, given that response, what if someone came to you and they're just a clean slate and they just want to know, okay, how do I start off on the right foot? What would you tell them?
So in reference to selling on eBay or just starting their business in general?
Either one, whichever one you feel like answering more.
So, yeah, I mean, selling on eBay, I always give the same advice to anyone who has never really done it before. Instead of going out and spending, hundreds of dollars or whatever at a thrift store, like go through your closet first or your house and find things that you can sell on eBay first. Because that way you're not spending any more money on it just in case it goes bad. And you get to learn how to, title an item, how to take pictures, like just the process, because you need to learn how eBay is set up. You need to learn what's important when it comes to titling an item or writing a description or whatever. So really just like sitting down and learning how it works, because I feel like a lot of people want to jump into this and day one be making $10,000, and it's not realistic. Everyone has to start somewhere, and every big kid reseller has started in their shoes. So it's just, you have to take it slow. And like you said earlier, people get burnt out so quickly because they try to jump into and learn all these things at once, and it's just too much. Like, take over a period of time, learn new things, but not all at once, and just slowly get into it. And I mean, it's probably the same with starting your own business elsewhere too. Like, you just have to do a lot of research, talk to people who have done what you've done and just learn from them, and read a book or read a blog or watch YouTube videos. Like, that's what I did, and it was very helpful for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's pretty much all the questions that I had.
Okay.
What would be, I'm going to kind of hand it over to you. Where can people, get a hold of you if they want to say hello or ask questions, or if they just want to obviously see your content or buy something from you?
Yeah. So my Instagram name is just.thrift.it. That's kind of confusing. Just thrift it with periods in between. And my Instagram is set up as a business account, so you can contact me on there and it sends me an email. And then I also have a YouTube channel, and it's just called Just Thrift It with no periods.
Okay.
So kind of confusing, but I try to put out videos probably just once a month. There's not a ton out there, but just to help, teach people how I do things and stuff to learn from.
Right. And I can personally say that the one you have on the Goodwill bins it's a good one. I didn't even know those existed, but now I do.
Well, thanks.
So I guess one final question. What are are there any thoughts that you have when it comes to business or eBay reselling that maybe we didn't get to touch on because I didn't ask a question that allowed you to get it out there? Kind of what are your general thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I know, I make the joke, like, don't just jump into it without doing research, which is true, but if you're motivated, you can certainly do what I do. You can be your own entrepreneur, you can run your own business. Like, it takes a certain type of person, and I think every person is able to tell if they are able to do it or not. No one else can make that decision for you. But just take advantage of all these great things we have out there between Instagram and YouTube. Like, there's so much content out there that will help you grow and will help you answer any questions you have when it comes to running your own business or whatever. Just don't be too fearful that you don't ever make the leap to do it. Because, if we were all fearful, we would always be in corporate America.
Right.
And it would suck.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed there. Okay, well, that actually brings us just about up to time. You have excellent timing. So I guess we'll end the podcast there. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for the call and everything. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. It's good to talk. Thanks so much for having me on your show here.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast or watch it on YouTube, wherever you're consuming this content. If you enjoyed the things that Bethany shared with us, please be sure to check her out on Instagram at Just Thrift It. That's just period thrift period it. So Just Thrift It with periods in between. You can contact her by email and obviously direct message, things like that on Instagram. Also check out her YouTube channel, which is called Just Thrift It. There will be links to all of that in the show notes. Thank you guys again for taking time to listen to this. I hope you guys got value out of it. I know that I enjoyed talking to Bethany, and I learned a lot. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe here on YouTube or SoundCloud, wherever you're hearing this. Also be sure to come say hello on our social media. I would love to hear from you, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day.